Amazing.
So here we go. We can keep going. That's just repeating the headline.
Right back here.
So she spoke with Den of Geek about the season's finale and the eponymous Rings of Power and their creation. She said, we spoke a lot about how there's an almost childlike back to Valinor thing that happens to the elves when they look upon those rings. So for a brief moment, all that exists is this beautiful light shining from them. She then admitted her character took on the role of Sauron. She says she knows that she has done something that she's going to have to pay for. She's deceived Elrond and Celebrimbor, but she knew they needed to create something powerful to fight him, but also terrifying. So there's all kinds of problems with these two sentences from a lore standpoint. The fact that she is literally admitting that her character deceives Elrond and Celebrimbor in order to create the rings, that is what Sauron does in Tolkien's Legendarium, in the Silmarillion, in the Unfinished Tales. That is what Sauron does. Sauron poses as Anatar, the giver of gifts. His deception is works on Celebrimbor and the elves and the smiths of Eregion. It does not work on Elrond and Gil-galad. They don't perceive who he is, though, but they know there's something wrong about this guy. Gladriel in the Unfinished Tales, as we'll get to later on in this article, Gladriel in the Unfinished Tales, Tolkien writes that Sauron sees Gladriel as like a person he needs to get kicked out of Eregion, or she's gonna blow the lid on everything that he's doing. So he basically fosters a political coup against her and rallies Celebrimbor and like this Smith Guild against her to drive her out of the city. And so she actually leaves the city and travels through the Mines of Moria, travels through the dwarven city of Khazad-dûm, and lives in Lothlorien in the forest. And so she's not the one deceiving Elrond and Celebrimbor. It's Sauron that deceives Celebrimbor. Elrond doesn't get deceived. He's with Gil-galad, and they have basically repulsed Sauron posing as Anatar, and he poses as and it's not just he's posing as this fair being Anatar, the giver of gifts. He's pretending to be an emissary of the Valar, and is telling them like, hey, it is our goal to rebuild Middle Earth. And he kind of preys on the elves' desire to want to rebuild Middle Earth after the devastation from the War of Wrath during the First Age. So huge problems there right off. And then, so if you remember from the Rings of Power, if you actually watched it, don't recommend watching it. That's what I'm here for. I'll watch it for you so I can point out all this crap. But she's the one who also recommends they make 3 rings, which that goes against how those were created. That was done by Celebrimbor. Celebrimbor is the one who makes the 3 rings, which are done without any like connection to Sauron. Obviously, Sauron helped the elves grow in their talents and worked on a number of the rings, influenced the creation of the rings, the other rings, the 9 and the 7. But here, Celebrimbor, Tolkien makes it clear that Celebrimbor creates the 3 elven rings without any of Sauron's influence. But instead, in Rings of Power, it's Galadriel's idea. She says, we must make 3. 1 will always corrupt, 2 will divide. And then Celebrimbor says, with 3, there is balance. I think this is an interesting idea. If it was done correctly, if this was like Celebrimbor's idea and he was adding like 3, there's balance, because obviously the Trinity like that goes in with Tolkien's Catholicism and everything like that. Having Galadriel make them is ridiculous. And then the reasoning they give for the creation of the ring here too in the show, which is what she says in this interview with Den of Geek: the powers we forge today must be for the elves alone, untouched by other hands. And they're obviously like she's doing it because they want to fight back against Sauron. That's not why they make the rings. In the Fellowship of the Ring, the actual book that the Rings of Power creators say they actually had the rights to use to adapt during the council. I'm blanking on it, what the council's called, but they're in Rivendell. I think it's the Council of Elrond, maybe is what it's called. In that chapter, Elrond tells them why the three rings are made. So if we scroll down here, I think I have that in here. It's not on the top of mine, so I want to actually read it for you. This is right here is basically talking about how Sauron manipulates the elves to run Galadriel out.
Is this it? Now the elves made many rings?
We got to keep going down.
Further? Okay.
That's just explaining how the rings were created. Okay, right here. I think we passed. Did we pass it there? Go up a little bit.
Oh, shoot.
Nope.
Click the wrong button. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, no, let's keep going. There's a lot. I put a lot into this. Sorry.
Yeah. That's the trouble with all the lore. I don't know how Tolkien kept it straight. I get confused sometimes with my own stuff. So
this is still talking about Galadriel getting run out, because I went through the creation of the rings and how they were created first, and then how she's getting run out.
Elsewhere, the elves received him gladly.
So this is talking about Sauron being manipulating the elves at a region. Here it is, right here, Elrond, right here. So as for the reason why the three elven rings were crafted, Elrond explains in the Fellowship of the Ring, the three were not made by Sauron, nor did he ever touch them, but of them it is not permitted to speak. So much only in this hour of doubt I may now say, they are not idle, but they were not made as weapons of war or conquest, which is what Morphet Clark says they're used to fight back against Sauron, the implication being it's a weapon of war. That is not their power. Those who made them did not desire strength or domination or hoarded wealth, which is what Morphet Clark is now saying that the three rings were created for, is for strength to fight against Sauron. That's not why they were created, but they're created for understanding, making, and healing, to preserve all things unstained. That's like radically different than what Morphet Clark is saying, and how they're shown in the show. And then Elrond says, these things the elves of Middle-earth have in some measure gained, though with sorrow. But all that has been wrought by those who wield the three will turn to their undoing, and their minds and hearts will become revealed to Sauron if he regains the one. It would be better if the three had never been. That is his purpose, Sauron's purpose. I'm going to sneeze here. Hold on. Excuse me. So like, clearly this is why the rings were made. They're not made to fight back against Sauron, as Morphet Clark is saying. So these people don't even know, like, they've completely just changed everything. It's not Tolkien, it's not Lord of the Rings at this point. It's an utter fan fiction that has no basis in what Tolkien wrote. They're literally rewriting the Rings of Power and giving them a complete and utter different backstory. There's a complete different motivation as to why they're created. It undermines they're probably going to have different powers as well. I would not be surprised if Galadriel's ring, the ring of air, she shoots wind out of it or something.
Can fly. She can fly wearing it. Yeah.
It's like Aang. It's like she's like the ring gives you powers or whatever. And if you have the three wings, you can shoot wind, fire, and water all together. Like it's gonna be some kind of like cringe Captain Planet ability. Yeah, as Middle-earth Storytime says, Sauron taught the Elven Smiths his craft. And then like that, obviously Celebrimbor used that, and that craft is within the three, but it's untouched. He didn't actually work on it. So he still has that power over the three, as well as the 7 and the 9. And that power literally allows him to dominate people's wills. And that's why the ring wraiths in the Lord of the Rings still follow Sauron's command, because he still has those rings in his possession, and he's able to control them and dominate their wills and do that. Tolkien actually, I was reading a letter today about one of his letters, and he actually does this thought experiment about what would have happened if Gollum didn't take the ring and fall into Mount Doom, and the ring was destroyed, but that Frodo still had it and decided to flee Mount Doom. He would have actually been able to potentially wield the One Ring against the ring wraiths because the One Ring has the power over the ring wraiths. So the ring wraiths would have eventually kind of maybe bowed to his will, the ring's will, through Frodo. But at the end of the day, they still bow to Sauron because it's Sauron's will that is infused into the ring. And once we reunited with him, that they would still eventually try and get the ring from Frodo anyways. But they would be, what's the word I'm looking for? Subject to minor commands from Frodo, as detailed in the thought experiment by Tolkien. Yeah, this is the danger of this show and of a lot of these remakes, is that people aren't going to go back to the source. They're not going to read the books. They're not going to know what the real true story is, the true intentions are. And I think this is a danger for a lot of people. Mephisto X says here, a younger, more woke generation will only know Lord of the Rings from this. There will be no Tolkien Lord of the Rings. Destroy the past, kill it if you have to. Exactly. That is the motto of Hollywood, as told through us through Adam Driver's Kylo Ren. And I do think that's a significant fear. At the same time, though, I can just come from my own personal experience. This show has made me much more aware of Tolkien and his writings and his intentions. And I ravenously read more of his essays. Like, it turned me on to the fairy stories essay. I read his letters pretty much once a week. So it really is like inspired me to read it. But I do feel like I'm pretty much in the minority. JC does make another point here. Younger generations, let's hopefully so.
Well, apparently
they aren't watching this.
They had like 70% drop off in their viewing, right?
Yeah, there's a rumor from the Hollywood Reporter, hasn't been confirmed, but this was from Kim Masters, who she has a podcast. She really took to task Jennifer Salke and Amazon's entire like production philosophy and culture and everything they're doing. And she reported that 63%, I think, or 67%, something like that, of domestic viewers, so in the US, Canada, did not continue or did not finish Rings of Power. So they might have watched the first episode. 67% of the people that watched the first episode did not watch through to the end. So that's a huge good sign from that people were turned off from it, because it is so absolutely terrible and goes against what Tolkien wrote, what his intentions were, and what his story was. But I'm still baffled that if we go back up, like, she admitted that she took on the role of Sauron by deceiving Celebrimbor in order for them to create the rings. Like, right there, she literally says this. I mean, they're admitting to this now, right?